It is a sort of cliche in Indian writing in English to call Nazim Ezekiel the father of modern Indian poetry in English. I have no problem with that statement. In fact, I endorse that statement wholeheartedly. I'm a hardcore fan of Nazim Ezekiel myself. He was my mentor. And if I'm anything today, it's largely because of Nazim Ezekiel. There is no doubt that he's the father of modern Indian poetry in English. But I would like to point out that A.K. Ramanujan also made a phenomenal contribution to the shaping of post-independence Indian poetry in English. If two persons have to be identified as the founding fathers, as the father figures of post-independence Indian poetry in English, I would say that they are Nazim Ezekiel and A.K. Ramanujan. The sustained efforts, the comprehensive efforts of Nazim Ezekiel and A.K. Ramanujan were responsible for overthrowing the conventions that reigned in Indian poetry in English before independence. If Indian poetry in English is what it is today, it is largely because of the work of Ezekiel and Ramanujan. In this context, I would like to read to you a few lines from A.K. Ramanujan's personal diary. This is a rather early entry. This was written when A.K. Ramanujan was embarking on his career as a poet. This gives us an idea, this passage gives us an idea of the sort of revolution that he had in mind when he set out on his long journey as a poet. I shall read the passage. I quote, "He was writing a poem, definitely not about the raptures of roses and the languors of lilies. He would not be conventional." Let me read the passage again. He was writing a poem, definitely not about the raptures of roses and the languors of lilies. He would not be conventional. Here Ramanujan uses the third person, but obviously he is referring to himself. The sort of poetry that he desired to write, that he wanted to write, that he was preparing himself to write, was not the poetry, was not the mainstream poetry that flourished in India before independence in the English language. He did not want to write about roses and lilies. Probably he wanted to look at roses and lilies from a very different perspective. He definitely not about the raptures of roses. Ramanujan does not say that he will not write about roses. He may write about roses, but he will treat roses, he will treat lilies in an ironical manner, in a detached manner. He will subject them to satire. He will mock them. He will make fun of them. He will demonstrate that roses and lilies are not what they have been made out to be by the poets before him. It is in the light of this entry, in the private diary of A.K. Ramanujan, in the personal diary of A.K. Ramanujan, that we have to try to read his very important poem, Obituary. Let us do that. But before I start discussing the poem, I would like to observe that A.K. Ramanujan was a multifaceted genius, the one and only A.K. Ramanujan. There was nobody like A.K. Ramanujan before him, and there will be nobody like A.K. Ramanujan after him. A.K. Ramanujan was a poet, a translator, an essayist, a folklorist, a linguist, a scholar, a teacher, an intellectual, a conversationalist, and above all, I'm never tired of repeating this, a very fine human being. A very fine human being. He was the gentle genius.